Well, they're at it again, those terrible Tories in Ottawa. Now they want to protect religion and religious diversity, and they claim that Christians shouldn't be attacked. They're so extreme. Father Raymond de Souza is my guest. He's a Roman Catholic chaplain at Queen's University and also editor of a new magazine, Convivium, which I do highly recommend. He joins me now from sunny Kingston. Welcome to you, Father.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good. Now, this Office of Religious Freedom, you're part of the consulting body?
There was a consultation held. There have been many, many consultations, but there was a big one held in Ottawa, and I was invited to actually speak. There's about 6 or 7 of us who spoke at it, and about 80 people who were there back in Ottawa. So that's the extent of my role. I'm supportive of the idea, and they asked for my view, and I gave it, which isn't hard to get from me.
Well, it's always worth hearing. Well, were most religions represented?
Yes, I think that there are people from all over Canada. I mean, this is a Canadian Office of Religious Freedom, so it wasn't a global office. It's a Canadian office in our Department of Foreign Affairs. So people who were interested in the issue were there at the meeting. I was a speaker, a Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Baha'i. There was some criticism in the press that there wasn't an Islamic speaker, but I think that probably if one has a fair-minded view of religious persecution around the world, that's not a high priority item, but of course there is some.
Quite so. Now, you can't see this video because you're out there at Kingston, but I think you'll probably be able to hear it. This is some video of, I think it's a woman moaning on the CBC. What's new there? Let's have a look.
A new government office is generating controversy even before it's gotten off the ground. Why is this issue generating such controversy?
The CBC's Louise Elliott got an exclusive glimpse of who was there and who was not.
There's a real absence of Eastern religions on this panel, obviously, and there's also an absence of Islam on the panel.
The Office of Religious Freedom isn't inclusive enough.
What's controversial is who was invited and who wasn't. The balance on this panel of invited speakers was really skewed towards Western religions. Muslims weren't on the panel, a front for basically allowing Christian minorities worldwide to continue to proselytize and convert other religions.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, just the ignorance. Eastern religions, where do they think Christianity started? In Kitchener?
Well, you're absolutely right. Christianity is a Mediterranean religion, and you know, if a Christian in India or a Christian in China is being persecuted, to say that's a Western preoccupation is a little odd. And as far as it being an exclusive report by the CBC, I think my photograph was on the Department of Foreign Affairs website, showing that I was there. So I don't think it was a highly secret consultation. There's over 100 people in the room, so I think there's a little bit of heavy breathing there going on. It's not an exclusive story or an exclusive consultation.
Now, I don't do much CBC bashing here because apparently, allegedly, there are other people on the station who do it. But we've been accused of manufacturing a story. We don't do that, but this is a manufactured story. Let's get to the heart of this, Father, because no one is trying to bash a particular religion, but many of the people who are persecuted internationally are persecuted in countries with an Islamic majority. It tends to be Christians, sometimes Hindus, Buddhists, who are persecuted by Muslims. So we can't just ignore that fact, can we?
No, it can't be ignored. As far as the Christian focus, it has to be remembered that 80% of all acts of religious persecution around the world are against Christians. And that's from the International Society of Human Rights in Germany, and a secular group. That persecution is sometimes by the hands of Muslims. It's at the hands of nationalist Hindus in India. It's at the hands of totalitarian communists in China and in other countries. So it's not a monolithic thing, but it is true that most religious persecution in the world is against Christians. And so if you're interested in religious liberty, you're going to be drawn to those to those areas. To the point you raised, Michael, in many Islamic majority countries, the status of religious minorities, which sometimes even means Muslim minorities, for example, as Sunni Shiite division, is not very secure, and everybody knows that. To call attention to it is an act of courage and an act of clarity. It's not an act of bias.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, for example, Baha'i. Now, in Iran, Persia, Baha'i have suffered arguably more than any other minority group.
Right, and there was on this supposedly secret consultation, there was a Baha'i speaker as one of the panelists. So the office is very broad-minded. It's a new initiative. It hasn't even been established yet, and I think it's fair to say that in the consultative process, one shouldn't get too excited about what one thinks might be happening. I might say, apropos of the woman who you had on the video there, the prospect of Christian proselytism in some of these countries is very, very remote.
Well, it's illegal in most, if not,
yes.
not all, but most Muslim countries. I think what irritates me the most, it's not the anti-Christian bias, it's the pure ignorance of the people who claim to be speaking for the great national institution of public broadcasting there.
Well, I think that characterization of Christianity as a Western religion shows that. I mean, people who know the history of Christianity, it's a Mediterranean religion, and at certain parts of its history, the majority of Christians would have been in what we would call the Middle East or even the Near East. So to say it's a Western religion shows perhaps what the CBC might call, in other circumstances, kind of a Eurocentrism.
I think it does. There's a little bit more on the actual persecution. You mentioned that Christianity, the most persecuted religion, the most persecuted group, and that's not a Christian group saying that. These are secular groups who probably wouldn't really want to confess this in public. It's not getting better. If anything, the new Arab world could make it worse. Syria, for all of its problems and dictatorial nature, has really protected Christians. Saddam Hussein was a monster, but he didn't target Christians. Iraqi Christians, now Syrian Christians. I've even heard of some Jordanian Christians, and certainly Christians in Egypt, are looking to leave their homeland. This is very severe and very worrying.
It is very worrying. What happened in Iraq after Saddam Hussein was deposed was almost open season on Christians. Many of them have left. What's more worrying, Michael, is in a place like, for example, Egypt, where the recent elections have brought to prominence some very, if you want to say, extreme strands of Islam. There are 10 million Christians in Egypt. They're not going to leave. They're not going to be able to leave, even if they wanted to. And so if they're there and there's a wave of persecution against Christians, it's going to be very bloody indeed. In Iraq, you can say, as bad as the persecution was, at least there was the capacity for refugees to leave. That's not an ideal situation, but they could at least leave. That's not going to happen in Egypt with 10 million Christians. So there could be prospects for a lot of violence in Egypt and in other parts of the Arab world. Hopefully the Arab Spring will return to a more a sunny disposition, but at the moment it looks very bleak. It does.
Let's hope so. Just briefly as we end, this new publication, Convivium, is there a website?
Yes, it's www.cardus.ca/convivium, and you can check it out there. And it's not as lively as the Arena with Michael Coren, but it's pretty close.
And if they just type in Convivium and maybe your name, it'll take them to the website.
I would hope so. I'd hope so.
Of course it would. As always, a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.